My heart and soul also lies in sport. Eventually zeroed in on golf, made a career out of it. And around that time is when my sister experienced anxiety and depression. The magnitude of the problem and my own understanding or sort of lack of understanding took me off guard.
1 in 7 people will face a mental health issue. WHO, for example, recommends that we need 3 psychiatrists per 100,000. India today has 0.8.
As a society, being stressed, being upset, being low is called normal. You see, that is the problem. We call it normal. So we've called disturbed emotions as normal in this last 20, 30 years.
Where mental health is concerned, firstly, I think it's important to understand that there's mental health and then there's mental illness. And sometimes, we sort of mix those two up. This is something that affects anybody. And I remember the one thing that Deepika said is, irrespective of everything else, if I can even help save one life or if I can make a difference even to one person, it would have been worth it.
We will come to know that a family member is going through something if we sit, talk without technology.
There are only about 10 to 12,000 psychiatrists in the country today, and maybe a few thousand come up every year. If you do the math and you look at 10 to 12,000 psychiatrists currently with a population of 1.5 billion people, but 1 in 7 is going to experience mental illness, you're absolutely right in saying that there is a very huge gap in terms of demand and supply.
India ranks 60th out of 84 countries in a survey when it came up to what mental well-being means for young people. So we are really not the best country when it comes to the state of mental health of young people, but we are the youngest population in the world. 11 people, 1 out of 11 people in the world is an Indian under the age of 25. And this young youth power is going to shape the future not only of India, but of the world as well. And therefore today in our ThinkRight podcast that we have here in the city of Bangalore, which is buzzing with tech and buzzing with ambition for young people, we also have a young leader whose heart is in the right place, the CEO of the LiveLoveLaugh Foundation. Very powerful, each of those words, and we can have one podcast on that. Anisha Padukone, welcome to this ThinkRight podcast, and thank you, for being here with us. And we really look forward to, your understanding of your journey as well as how you're impacting and shaping a very critical area, for India and for the world, mental health. And of course, to guide us and to, give her mentorship, we have with us our ever radiant sister, Shivani. Thank you so much for your presence here as well. So let me begin, Anisha, with you. Tell us a little bit about your journey, right? And how you have come to, believing in something, that is so important, but how have you come to this stage through your own life experience? Take us a little bit through your own journey and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Firstly, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. In terms of my own journey, and you mentioned Bangalore, I'm fortunate enough to have everything that has happened pretty much, in this beautiful city. I was born here, brought up here, I did my schooling and education here. My heart and soul also lies in sport, not just as a result of, obviously, my father. I've always had a keen interest in sport, so played a lot of sport, eventually zeroed in on golf, made a career out of it. Played at an amateur level, represented India, was ranked in the top 10, turned professional for a few years. And around that time is when my sister experienced anxiety and depression. And that, I think in a certain sense, for me personally, took me off guard because I felt like I knew enough about this topic prior to the experience. But that was a little bit of a rude awakening of sorts where I realized that I didn't know enough. Secondly, I realized the magnitude and scale of the problem. And slowly I started gravitating towards, this topic or field. Having said that, I've always been very sort of intrigued and keen on the human mind. I've studied psychology, sociology, and economics as well. So in that sense, it's something that has always piqued my interest. And I guess the experience just spurred that curiosity. And yeah, here I am. Foundation was set up in 2015, post Deepika's recovery. She wanted to be able to help other people out there and create a platform that can do sustained work in mental health. I joined them in about 2016 and sort of been leading the organization since then.
So that sense of purpose, which you probably built strongly in sport when you were able to excel at that level. How did that shift come about? I mean, do you feel more, how do you feel personally, doing what you're doing today versus when you were, of course, playing golf, and maybe at that point, that was what you made the purpose. But today, when you look at it, what's that shift? What was that? How did that shift come about?
I think from as long as I can remember, maybe I was 10, 12 years old, I've always had a purpose. And of course, that may have changed over a period of time. Initially, it was, very early on, I knew I wanted to be an athlete or I wanted to make a career out of it. Probably even from the age of, like I said, 10 or 12. So that became my sort of purpose. And the transition came about, like I said, as a result of the experience as a caregiver. The magnitude of the problem and my own understanding or sort of lack of understanding took me off guard. And I would say, the initial intention was really to be able to help out at the foundation and contribute in whatever way that I can. But more importantly, also learn, whatever new skills possibly that I could learn. But one thing led to another, and there was a transitioning happening at the organization at the time. And so the board felt, that I could possibly be the next leader of the organization. And, things fell into place. I would say I was very fortunate to have the right kind of mentors also very early on. And I think being able to translate some of the learnings from what I've learned through sport into, my, let's say, leadership journey. And of course, that's evolved over a period of time. And I'm sure it'll evolve further. That's really where that transition came about. But really just the shift was, when I was playing sport, it was a little bit more individualistic driven purpose. You're playing for yourself. Golf is an individual sport. You want to work towards something and achieve something for yourself, to then being able to actually work for people or help other people out there. So it becomes a sort of a larger kind of a purpose or goal.
And I think the reason we are talking a little bit about this, because the issue we are addressing through this conversation of mental health, many a times we find people, the lack of purpose or finding purpose too late also, gives you that vacuum in life, right? And sometimes you're not able to adjust to that. And very often we discover that much later in life, and of course purpose will change and the journeys will get shaped up. But the deeper you're connected to that, the better you're able to lead and navigate your life. How does that, how do people find that, right? Is there a secret sauce? Is there a formula? Or is this something that evolves over a period of time? Should people be looking for it? Because many young people we talk to, actually come to that question much later in life, right? Should they come to it earlier?
It's your purpose. So we have to remember that it's your purpose. Your purpose means it's the purpose of the being. We are looking at the purpose in the doing. So I feel the work that I do, it will take care of my purpose. More often, that doesn't happen because you're looking for a purpose in what you're doing. So that is a purpose of your role and responsibility, which is very important. For a mother, it is, my purpose is just to look after my children. She doesn't want to think of something very big in what is purpose. But in that doing, the being is aligned with the doing. The being is experiencing that happiness. The being is experiencing that love, that care, that compassion while she's doing the parenting. So doing is the parenting, but the being is very aligned with the doing. And so she's very contented playing that beautiful role of a parent. So sometimes what I'm doing is My doing, it's my profession, it's my career, it's I have to earn, I have to achieve. But my being is not aligned with the doing. And that's when I feel that, what is my purpose? Is my purpose only this much, get up every morning, go to work, earn this much, take care of the family? Because the being is not experiencing that happiness. It can experience excitement when I achieve something, but then again go back to my routine. So we don't necessarily have to look for our purpose in what we are doing, because it might not be always over there. Purpose is not what we're doing. It's my purpose. It's the purpose of the soul. So when the soul is creating higher vibrational energy while doing whatever they're doing, so you could be doing mundane work, matlab absolutely ordinary. Like I look sometimes at Mount Abu when we're at the headquarters. There are some brothers and sisters who are surrendered there for like 25 years, 30 years, 50 years. So the other day we were at a retreat and one person comes up to me and saying, I've done this, I've achieved this, but I'm still not feeling happy. And just while he was talking, one brother walked across the stage. His work is just to set the stage. And he's doing that for 30 years. Okay? Which means the chair has to be right, the table has to be right, the sister will come on the stage, he said. And he's doing that for 30 years. It is such a boring, monotonous thing. But the glow on his face, that radiance, that happiness, I just told him, just look at this person. I said, look at his work. It's so boring. Can we do this for 30 years, just put in the chair? I said, but look at his face. He's glowing more than anyone else over here in this room because he's very happy. So the purpose of the being is taken care of. And when the purpose of the being is taken care of, now, what you're doing is just a doing. It is not supposed to satisfy the being. The being is already contented. The being is already satisfied. So don't try and connect the two things every time, because then we keep trying and looking for a job where I will be able to. For some it might happen. For some it might not happen, because my job is my livelihood. I have to take care of my family. But if you take care of the being and the being finds that energy and in how they're connecting to the world, like she shared, being able to make a difference in people's lives. It creates compassion in you. It creates empathy in you. It just radiates an energy which you were not probably using when you're just leading your normal life where everything is perfect. You don't have to create so much compassion and empathy. And now she's creating compassion and empathy for unknown people, for strangers. Look at the level of the energy, where it's gone there. Automatically you're going to feel nice. But then it's not necessary what I'm doing will allow me to create this. But if I start working on the being and I create that compassion, that empathy, I shift towards selflessness, the purpose of the being is taken care of. You will feel that your purpose is getting fulfilled in what you're doing here. Then your doing is a part of your job. So don't necessarily have to look for a connection between the two. Take care of the being and then come into the doing. Don't look for contentment in what you are doing. Be contented and do what you are doing. Then you will be radiating that highest energy and the purpose of the being is taken care of.
I think it's a beautiful, way to kind of, separate the being and the doing. And I think that awareness, of this gap is actually enough to be able to be doing the right things and still feeling in a different way. The challenge is to sustain it 24/7, as we always say. But we are also a product of, the family unit. Like, Anisha, in your case, your father is an accomplished athlete and sports person, and you got drawn to golf, right? I mean, from badminton to golf, or Deepika's situation in the family triggered you to make this shift, right? That the family as a construct is also a very important part of the choices you make as a career. And I'm going a little deeper into this subject because our audiences are, young people who are making career choices. And I think this is a very important thing for their long-term mental health, for them and their family, because you got to be happy in your doing. Being, of course, everybody will find different ways to take care of, but in your doing also. So family as a construct becomes very important in what you'll end up doing. Do you, when you look back, do you see that those were the triggers, or how do you see it with, your other colleagues? What's your thinking around the importance of the family in shaping how you do things in life?
I think it's important to note that maybe some of us have that opportunity or privilege to be able to look at the family construct and then make those choices. And then there are some people who maybe unfortunately don't have that option or opportunity. Having said that, in my case, I think I think let's say the experiences, the surrounding for me shaped, sport. I was at a school where, sport was encouraged, and it wasn't until I actually joined that school that I realized that there is some level of talent, within the sport, because, we had about every day we used to play at least 2 sports, about 2 hours a day. So, 2 new sports every day, and we had about 10 or 12 sports. So it was an opportunity for me to really try different sports. And that's when I realized that, okay, all of these sports that I'm trying, there is some skill set. Then automatically you start enjoying, obviously, something that you're reasonably good at. And that's when I said, okay, let me also make it a career option, because I had seen that my father had done that. So for me, that was, even at a very young age, I felt like, okay, this is a job opportunity, even though, let's say, I'm a woman in the country and so on and so forth. But having said that, for my sister, for example, there was nobody from our family who's been in the film industry, so there wasn't any sort of so I wouldn't say it's a sort of determining factor. It's a combination of where your interests lie. One thing that's been common for the both of us in terms of our upbringing has been encouragement to seek a career option based on what we enjoy, as opposed to us being pushed into something that maybe is culturally a greater fit, or economically, or maybe even, my dad saying, no, both of you have to play badminton. That was never the case. So I think that was a really big sort of advantage in our case, where both our parents said, whatever you all enjoy doing, go ahead and pursue that. So that's really where, then I took up sport, and of course, Deepika went into
a family situation, like what happened with Deepika, triggering you to do that. And I'm saying this in a very interesting context, because we are in the startup capital of India. And as venture investors or as investors, when we find founders, young founders have a deep purpose. Like, we invest in a company where somebody in the family went through a particular disease, and you're trying to find that cure. You find the hunger to be able to sustain and do things with a greater amount of effort, because it comes is a huge positive when one is making decisions. Of course, yours is a NGO, but still, I think the support that you will get just because or the passion with which you will do things is because of a family situation. I think that family construct as a trigger to help you're doing. And of course, we talk in business, 80% of businesses in the world today are family businesses, right? Because it's natural when the dinner table conversation is about family, about business. You will go even politics today. We see, generational. There is something about family and, the situations of the family that make the next generation do things. And sometimes you come to a point where there's a conflict between the situations that put you into something versus maybe what you aspire to do. And I'm getting into these because these are the triggers or causes for stress, or the gap, and then it leads to mental. As a matter of fact, you mustn't have seen. Of course, I'm sure you've seen it. This weekend, I watched the movie Dhurandhar 2, where Ranveer Singh, Deepika's, of course, husband and your brother-in-law, he makes a line that this lifetime was to get into a military or something, and he says, I'm not going to do that in this lifetime, but I am going to do whatever I'm doing for my family, because the family went through some situation. And that triggered a whole course. I'm just giving an example from a film, but society understands these things from, many angles, that what happens in my family becomes my first priority, especially in India. How does that doing the family, why are you born in a particular family? These are fundamental questions that many people ask. Any thoughts around that?
See, why we get influenced by what's happening in the family? Because we're living in those vibrations. If someone is living in a boarding school right from kindergarten till they pass out of university, they will not get influenced that much by family. We're breathing that air. We're drinking the water of that house. We're eating the food. So apart from connections, you're living in that vibration, which means you're absorbing that energy, the soul and the body of what's happening into that energy field. So automatically, it's natural to feel that connect. So if there is, let's say when a sister was going through pain, there's pain. And so everyone can feel that pain, everyone can connect with that pain. So obviously that intention, that what we went through and what we experienced and what we learned is needed for everybody. So whether it's professional, whether it's a personal experience, energy is what we absorb. So we come into a particular family because of our past karmic accounts. So like you say about this actor and the line in the film. So has an intention, situations change, decisions change, but that unfulfilled thing of wanting to become that military person will carry with that soul. And then in another lifetime, that soul will fulfill that particular thing. So some people will align with what is the energy in the family, and some people will be coming with the thing that no, I have to do only this, because probably either I was doing that, I want to continue that, or it was somewhere left unfulfilled and I have that very deep desire to do that. So it's a journey of a soul passing through many families. We've not been a part of one family. We've been a part of many, many, many families. That's been my journey. So I'm carrying so many impressions here because of energy. But vibrations of the house will obviously influence. So when we were living in joint families, more vibrations. So more influences. Now nuclear family. But it's important, that's why, to live with family, because that energy is also giving you that sense of purpose. It makes a lot of difference.
And it's interesting because in the movie, that's what he also said. He said, next lifetime I'll do it. But the affirmation was, but he does it in this lifetime only. And so
that is also good. But that's but what it means is that it remains as a very strong impression on the soul. And the soul will not know why I want to do that, but it's because I'm carrying something on my journey. It's like we look at it as life, death. But for the soul, it is yesterday and today. So yesterday I wanted to do something. I couldn't do it. So today I want to do that. It's just that I don't remember that it was my yesterday. But I will have that very strong feeling to do that.
Yeah. You know, I think we look at that and our journey starts. And today, you know, you're helping people, young people, deal with loneliness, deal with, you know, there are words like shaming and, you know, empathy and understanding and, you know, all going hand in hand, right? So take us a little bit, Anisha, through the work that you're doing and how you're engaging people, you know, in this journey of improving their state of mind and, you know, addressing the root cause of, you know, a mental health and stress in today's society.
So I think where mental health is concerned, firstly, I think it's important to understand that there's mental health and then there's mental illness. And sometimes, you know, we sort of mix those two up. Mental health is something that, like physical health, we can all, you know, take care of, or we can do a better job at taking care of, working on, you know, building our resilience. Whereas illness is obviously when, you know, you need some sort of clinical intervention and support. What we do as an organization is primarily focus on three things, which is not all encompassing in terms of the landscape of mental health in India, but we feel that given our strengths as an organization and maybe the largest, you know, areas of focus that are required are primarily what we call the 3 A's. One is, the first A is awareness. So increasing awareness, understanding, mental health literacy, for example, on the topic, because that in itself in our country, let's say over the last decade or so, while it's gotten better, there's still a very long way to go. There's a little bit more awareness now on common mental disorders, but maybe not as much on, you know, on other forms of mental illness. So that's the first A. The second aspect is access to resources and credible sort of professionals and help that's out there and that's available. That's the second thing that we do. And the third thing, which is also equally important, is while we're sort of doing the awareness and access, can we also focus on affordability? Because mental health care in rural as well as both in urban India is unfortunately still not, you know, very affordable. So these are the three things that we look at. There's different ways in which we go about it, whether it's for an urban population or obviously very different model that we have for rural populations. Typically underserved, marginalized communities. But these are the sort of areas of focus, just in a gist.
No, I think, you know, it's so important to address that last A, right, which you talk of, because I think anything that we do in a country like India, 1.5 billion people. We are still an emerging economy, of course, on a high growth trajectory, needs to be inclusive, and therefore affordability is such a key criterion or non-negotiable for India's transformation journey or anything one does. But I think before we get to affordability, I think is the stigma of recognizing mental health issues. And we were talking about families, right? And even within the family, sometimes it's hard for people to either talk about it or for others to realize, families will brush it out. How have you found ways for people to really discuss this openly? How is that changing? Tell us a little bit about what you've seen through your experience.
It's definitely changing. There is, like I said, if you look at the last 10, 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation, right? So these are all sort of small signs that things are opening up or people are becoming a little bit more open to the narrative and the topic itself. Where stigma is concerned, I think stigma a lot of times starts with the self. So an individual faces a lot of self-stigma for various reasons. And then, of course, it extends into, it could be family, it could be your workplace, it could be friends, and then, of course, the larger society. So there's various levels of stigma. Having said that, the conversation has opened up, not just from our experience anecdotally, but we have done, research studies that have shown that there is greater awareness of mental health and there's reduced stigma. In that, I mean that people are more open to, let's say, seeking help and support for themselves, talking about what they're experiencing and going through, but also, being open to another person who may have mental illness, whether that's sort of, supporting them at a workplace or being friends with someone with mental illness. And the reason for that is, I think earlier there was not a very nuanced understanding of the topic. So mental illness was largely sort of connected to more severe forms, and people felt like, I can't be friends with this person because, there was all kinds of misinformation around the topic. But now with greater understanding and greater awareness of it, people, feel a little bit more, let's say, courage to actually share their narrative. And what we're seeing is a lot more of that is coming through from the younger generation. We spoke about the youth. So I think the younger generation is really leading that way in the sense of, acknowledging what they are being more aware of what they are going through, which is a good and, not so good thing, because, then it can lead to greater awareness also has its own sort of side effects. So they are not only more aware, they are open to seeking help and support, and in certain sense also drawing those boundaries where, where their mental health is concerned and prioritizing it in certain situations where it needs to be.
I think you also meet a lot of families, right? And
every day.
Every day. and the journeys of course, all people are different. The person going through the challenge, the family, the discussions amongst the first set of, stakeholders, family and close friends. How do you see this, moving from here on, and what's your advice to them?
Actually, even now, most people are not able to figure it out in the initial stages. If we figure it out in the initial stages, I think we go through less trouble. But because as a society, being stressed, being upset, being low is called normal. You see, that is the problem. We call it normal. You're feeling low. It's normal to feel low. You'll be okay in 2-3 days. Okay, 2-3 days, nahi, 10-15 days ho gaya. Still feeling low. It's normal. So we've called disturbed emotions as normal in this last 20-30 years. It's normal to be upset. It's normal to cry. It's normal to feel low. But it's normal to react. So when depression comes out in the form of reactions, where your child is suddenly shouting at you, screaming at you, probably even picking up something. Depression is not always the other way, which we see that it's always low. It sometimes comes out in very violent forms. But even then, people don't realize that it's something to do with health. They will say, bigad gaya, bachcha, sang theek nahi hai. It takes quite some time to say this needs help, because we keep connecting it with just a behavior. with just an emotion. And the person themselves will also not realize that there's something that I'm not feeling right. They will say it's just a behavior emotion. So it's still taking time to, of course, now, like Anisha said, it's there all over media. So media is helping. But I still feel when we sit and talk, it takes a lot of time to say, okay, let's meet a therapist, let's meet a psychiatrist, we need help. We still have a long way to go for everyone to. It's not still where physical health is. Physical health is very easy to talk about. It's easy to diagnose. Here, because there's no test immediately, there's no scan, there is no blood report, you still have those gray shades which say, nahi, ho jayega theek, we don't need to go to a psych. So, but awareness, but I think if we start creating a society which stops calling these emotions as normal, then we will be able to immediately say, you know what, something is not going right, something is not normal, let's talk to somebody. So overall well-being, if it changes, like resilience, so emotional health. That's why in spirituality we say work on your emotional health. So if you work on your emotional health, then you will be able to see the difference between when I am fine emotionally and when I'm not, then it is something that is not right. But emotionally, if we allow ourselves to create all these disturbing emotions, then it takes time to realize that I'm not fine and seek help. So it still takes time. And even when the younger generation accepts it, we still take time with parents. They say, nahi, aisa kuch nahi hai, mere bacha theek tha, kuch. It takes time with the parents yet. But of course, it's gone. 5 years back and now it's gone big ways. Awareness.
So what should people really look out for? To our audiences, if we wanted to build greater, you said you talk a lot about awareness, and so you meet. What do you tell people to look out for?
So firstly, this is an answer that a mental health professional should be giving. I'm not a professional, but what I have understood in my own sort of way is that I think if there's a period of 2 to 3 weeks where you feel like behavioral patterns have changed or the way you're feeling has changed, then it's probably the right time to seek help and support. That's on the illness side of things. It could be, for example, a loss of appetite, or sleep pattern has changed, and lack of interest in performing daily activities of that you usually perform. So those sort of signs and symptoms are, if that persists for, let's say, a 2-week period, is when, as per my understanding, you should seek help and support. But I think prior to that, there's a lot that can be done on the preventive side of things, and that's something that I think is probably even more important. While there are, maybe 1 in 7 Indians will experience mental illness in their lifetime as per statistics. But can we have a greater focus on the preventive aspect, where we are prioritizing, aspects that typically help this, which is sleep, nutrition, reduced stress as much as possible with the lives that we lead, and the way the world is right now. That may or may not be possible, but that makes it equally important to build your resilience and focus on some of these aspects, just the way you would with a physical illness. Today, nutrition, eating more natural forms of foods have become much more popular. People are exercising a lot more. And obviously there are reasons for that, because you're taking care of your physical health in a sense. So is there a way that we can all prioritize and take care of our mental health better so that it doesn't lead to a stage of illness?
Some tips to improve preventive mental health.
Everything that we do on ThinkRight. So sleeping right. Sleeping right is very important. Slowing down a little, which means getting the mind and body to rest every day, not working throughout, non-stop. That itself will also build up resilience, because fatigued mind is also a trigger. So slowing down doesn't mean that you're slowing down your work. You're just slowing down in your lifestyle, giving yourself that pause button, few minutes every day, few minutes before going to sleep. Content consumption. Big factor of emotional health getting affected, because what I consume is it influences the quality of my thoughts. So if we go back 30 years back, we were not talking this. Why? Because we were not consuming that much content. While we were growing up, the only content we had was one newspaper. And while we reached maybe 8th standard, 10th standard, then the first TV. But that one episode, once a week, that's how content started. But when it became 24/7 content, then the quality of content also changed. No? Because if you're going to have so much content, the quality has changed. So if I'm consuming a lot of lust, crime, terror, fear, and then go to sleep after that. So a lot of children, like when we're talking about youth, obviously they're busy the whole day, they're studying, classes. Now, after 10, 10:30, 11, 12 is my time. Just the other day, I was talking to a girl. She's in medical school right now. I said, what time do you go to sleep? She said, 1. I said, really? 1 o'clock, right time to sleep? She said, see, I'm studying till 11, 11:30. I said, I'm good, so then go to sleep. No, then my time? I said, acha, my time. So what do we do in that my time? She said, 12 to 1, I'm with the phone. So now that's so risky. One, what you're consuming. Second, what time you're consuming what you're consuming is just before you're going to go to sleep. So if I watch a terror or crime or something like that, any series, I'm watching it every day. Chalo, if you watch once in a week, once in a month, because I want to watch it every day, the episode. And then you go to sleep. So those emotions, those visuals, those energies are going deep into the subconscious. Then experiencing anxiety is, if you're not experiencing, we would say something is not right because you are eating that diet. It's like diet. You're consuming. Your body is going to respond. Maybe after 1 month, maybe after 6 months, maybe after 2 years, it will. So content consumption has to be taken care of. Food that we eat. Again, today's youth is eating more outside food. So what they are eating, what is the nutrition? If when it comes to junk food, then there's a lot of maida in that food. So when you're eating a lot of maida, your gut is getting inflamed. If the gut is getting inflamed, the mind is getting affected because of that gut-mind axis. Then anxiety, panic attack, that increases. So if you just change basic lifestyle habits, quality of content consumption, sleep cycle. Now most of our youth will say they stay up the whole night to study. Then they go to sleep in the morning. Again, you're going against nature. So you will not experience deep sleep. Healing of mind and body both will not happen. So it starts from lifestyle only. Resilience will build up with the right lifestyle. So restrict content consumption, check the quality of that content, let it be high energy content. Don't consume before you go to sleep. Go to sleep between that 10 to 4 a.m., 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. You should be asleep, deep sleep. Whatever you want to study, wake up early in the morning and do it. And eat right. As far as possible, eat home cooked food. Don't eat too much of white flour, maida. It's sticking to the gut. It's causing inflammation. So simple. And of course, along with that, if you start with, I feel even if you don't want to think right, even if you don't want to meditate, just live a right lifestyle. Thinking right will automatically start happening even with the right lifestyle. So content consumption is a very big factor also.
So is that what you push? Lifestyle changes through the foundation?
Yes, one of the many things, of course. Like Sister Shivani said, it does play a role. It is important. I think in addition to that, physical activity is and of course everything may not work for everybody. You have to try different things and see what works for you. But physical activity is one. It could be even just a walk every day, maybe half an hour, 45 minutes. It could even be yoga. Practicing yoga is supposed to be very useful, and I think aspects of breathing, and I think meditation is looked at as you have to sit down in a room or in a quiet place and darkness, and it's evolved and there are various ways to do it. So something that I personally do when I'm just sort of on the go and I don't have access to is different types of breathing techniques which work for me and may not work for another person. So there's enough out there to help out, and especially in situations where, look, stress is always going to be there, anxiety will be there. Like I keep saying, the world is only, getting sort of more stressful and making us more anxious, and there's a lot of stimulation in terms of content and things like that. But it is the boundaries that we draw as individuals. It's the balance between, maybe indulging in some of these things like shows or whatever it may be, and then of course also taking care of ourselves. So I think understanding your own patterns, knowing what works for you, and then sticking to those is important.
And keeping yourself, in the meditative state, or whatever we say, in the state of balance as much as possible, I think is...
One more thing.
Yeah.
Relationships. Connection with people more than technology. And very important now, in the coming era, where again you'll be probably talking to your machine more, that vibrations that we get with people, that is also an energizing. If we've become, so that is why if you see when work from home happened during COVID and even children studying from home, things suddenly went on rise after 2022. Depression suddenly increased, because suddenly disconnect. So loneliness and also being alone for a very long period of time, not getting, because either you raise your energy, you can live alone. So you can go in the hills and you can live alone for the rest of your life if you can raise your energy. But sometimes if you're not, then you have a lot of energy around you, which also helps to raise your energy. So people connect is also very important. Genuine people connect. So spend time with parents, spend time with family. Friends important, but spend time with family. Especially the youth of today. Spend time with family. Go and spend time with your grandparents. That's that vibration you need to absorb into your system.
Yeah, that's one generation that has the time for you, but you don't have the time for them.
But they have those beautiful vibrations also that
absolutely. No, and I think that's the beauty of the human connection, right? Family, friends, society, and the more coherent, the more compassionate, more empathetic, the right kind of emotions in that group, the more society will be shaped. But despite all of this, Anisha put out a very strong statistic that 1 in 7 people will face a mental health issue at some point. At least data is showing that. And today, and that might increase over a period of time, despite everything we do on the preventive side, just because the situation around us is changing. And like you always say, pressure, the resilience is not...
Lifestyle is not right.
Right.
So what is statistics given based on? It's like suppose you go to a doctor today. He'll also be able to give you your statistics that, Rajan, if you continue this lifestyle, 5 years down the line, you'll have diabetes. 5 years down the line, you'll have a heart issue. They're giving that based on your today's lifestyle and your today's everything, your system, your blood report and your lifestyle. If you change your lifestyle, the data can change. So if we don't change, we might make it 1 in 5 rather than 1 in 7. But if we take charge and we create a change, we can change that figure completely. So that statistics is true and it's based on our today's way of living. If we come together collectively, wake up and say, is this what we were working so hard for, that our next generation or our children are going to start calling depression as normal? Because it is like, okay, it's everywhere around, so it's normal to be. Then, theek ho gaya is fine, but change your life, no? Like if I have a disease in the body, it's okay, I'll treat myself. But then again, I'll work on it. No? I don't want to live with the disease. So lifestyle. So the statistics is right based on today's lifestyle. If we don't change, it's going to happen faster. Yeah. It will not be 1 in 7. It will be 1 in 5. But if we change, it will be different. Because they are doing it based on today's lifestyle. Correct. Our lifestyle will change when this AI technology comes. Our conversations will be more with machines. Again, less people-to-people connect. It might just happen.
Yeah. No, and for a situation like this, WHO, for example, recommends that we need 3 psychiatrists per 100,000. India today has 0.8 or something. So, I think your foundation, Anisha, is working towards building awareness. Like what you said, the question I asked you should be actually to a mental health professional. Because, like what you said, when you have an illness or you need to be treated, professionally, right? What is your foundation doing to build that capacity in India? And what should, like today there's a lot of, we represent a lot of corporates that are coming together as a part of the CSR to bring, change in society, right? Prioritizing for India. But, a country like India has so many priorities, right? Right from basic education to this. How do we prioritize, this issue, right? And that's one other thing I want to bring out through this podcast. It is, like what you rightly said, could become worse if lifestyle doesn't change. Yeah. And there's a big gap. So tell us a little more about what you're doing and what needs to be done.
So earlier on in our journey, we had a program for general practitioners, which was basically to train GPs to identify signs and symptoms. If you look at the number of, as you mentioned rightly on the statistics, there are only about 10 to 12,000 psychiatrists in the country today, and maybe a few thousand come up every year. A lot of them, end up working in India, or then they may, find better opportunities outside the country as well. So if you do the math and you look at 10 to 12,000 psychiatrists currently with a population of 1.5 billion people, but 1 in 7 is going to experience mental illness. You're absolutely right in saying that there is a very huge gap in terms of demand and supply. So one of the things that we did initially, like I said, was to train GPs, because I think as per statistics, almost 40% of people who go into a GP with a physical illness is actually a form of mental illness. It could be a persistent lower back pain, for example. So I think therefore for doctors outside of psychiatrists to be a little bit more aware on this, trained, not just awareness, but also get the right sort of training. That is something that we were doing, and there are various organizations who are sort of continuing to do that. We've, sort of scaled down on that particular initiative, but that's sort of one way of doing that. Having said that, even if we train, a lakh of doctors per year, that gap is really never going to be closed. So therefore, then the next question is, what do we actually do? And that's really where we've been able to identify that even in other developing countries, this community-based model is something that can really be of value and change that perspective. And therefore, what we do in our rural program is not just treat an individual on the basis of their illness. So it's not just a program where we identify a person who has mental illness, give them the right kind of treatment, but we also support their caregivers. We also involve the larger community. And then we train the community to rally together, what are their own roles and responsibilities, working together with the district level government systems, and then integrating all of those under the district mental health program. And we've seen tremendous change in, for example, in a district in Karnataka called Davangere, which is, close to Bangalore, where the community now runs the program on their own. By that, I mean, advocating with and working with the local district level authorities, working with the local, healthcare workers, which is the ASHA workers and the Anganwadi workers, to ensure that medication is stocked, doctors are coming, camps are happening regularly, awareness is happening, stigma has come down in the community. So I think India as a country being while that is changing, of course, we're moving towards a more nuclear families and things like that, especially in urban areas. But largely compared to the West, we are still a collectivist society. And therefore, there are models of community-based care that we can actually tap into. Like I said, training of doctors, but also all of us as individuals, we can train ourselves in various skills, including listening skills, which are, basic level skills that can be provided to anyone and everywhere out there. So I think these are, in a sense, I wouldn't say they are innovative models because they have been, tried and tested across the globe, but they are unique models that can be adapted to the Indian context, and that can then help tackle this challenge that you're talking about.
Any examples of AI or digital tools, like my buddy, an AI buddy all the time with you, guiding you, because, we, as I said, since we're in Bangalore, we also want to think of innovative solutions to and we know there are startups operating in this space and a lot of activity around, because, this is also links to Gen AI, right? Because data will only tell you so much. And this is a space where there's so much that is coming from unstructured data.
Yeah.
And that gives, opportunity for greater innovation. Anything that you're aware of that is being done in that space?
Yes, aware of a lot being done, in fact. Some may be better than others. My personal opinion is that while technology can play the role of an enabler, I don't think it can replace a human being or a human connection. I think Sister Shivani hit the nail on the head where while we move towards a more evolved society where technology is concerned, we're also, in a sense. So I think technology in where mental health is concerned can support, can facilitate, can triage, for example, and link you to, maybe faster, better quality help that's available. But I don't think it can be a substitute for actual human intervention. This is also mental illness is also not as evolved as a within healthcare compared to maybe other illnesses. And so I think we have to be very careful on that front. There have been, unfortunately, examples from the global, scenario where technology has not helped in cases of mental illness, right? So, and the other thing to understand is that there's a very big difference where if technology is trying to solve for, let's say, an individual who is stressed or anxious versus someone who's on the verge of taking their own life, there's a very big difference. So I don't know if there are enough safeguards yet where technology is concerned to manage some of that. Secondly, and most importantly, also on the aspect of data confidentiality. So there's so many sort of, outside of the clinical aspect of it, there are so many other things that need to be looked at. So I think it's still at a very sort of nascent, technology is still at a very nascent stage. Mental health and illness is also very sort of at a nascent stage when it comes to, let's say, development and research. And it's not just in India, even globally. It's not as simple as, let's say, a physical illness or something else where we know that, okay, if you have A, B, C, D, this is what the diagnosis is. It's not as simple as that. So I think, like I said, just to summarize, I think technology can support, enable, and help, but it should not, and at least at this stage, should not replace human medical intervention.
No, and I think, you raise a very interesting and important part that we talked of preventive, techniques, then we talk of an illness, 1 in 7, and the severity of that illness, the last mile which leads to taking one's life or becoming a threat to society and at large. Now that part is also increasing, right? So as we are seeing, because if 1 in 7, it's natural, right? That while we talked of human connection and all of that can help, but if it goes to that stage, how does one, again, and I go back to the construct, which is most relevant to that is again family, because I think the people you're surrounded by, and you brought this human connection. How is that response different when someone is reaching to that point, right?
See, today there are so many suicide prevention helplines, and the tagline that they give is, you're just one phone call away, you'll be saved. Which means only if you talk to someone, because it's just a thought which comes into your mind at that time. And if you're alone and you're not going to share with somebody, that's when it comes into action. It's of course a result of a mental health issue, but in most cases that mental health issue was not yet diagnosed. So you're not taking healing, you're not taking therapy, you're not taking treatment, you're not aware that you're going through it, your family is not aware that you're going through it, and you're alone. So if you see last year, so many people have chosen not to live. So everybody says, but what was happening? Nothing was wrong in their life. Mostly I feel suicide doesn't happen because something is wrong in our life. Something is wrong in our life is a situation. We can go low, we can get upset, but we talk to people, we think, we normally don't commit suicide due to a tragedy. We commit suicide when it comes as a very overpowering thought in my mind. There's no purpose of living. I don't need to live. I don't need to live. And I just bring that into action. It doesn't come because of a situation. That's very rare that somebody will do that to themselves because of a situation like that. A situation plus already an underlying condition. So it makes you feel low, but it creates this thought in you. That thought is coming because of the disease. That thought is not coming because of the situation. So one of those symptoms of depression is suicidal thoughts. So it's just coming to you, and it's coming at such a dominant thought that you feel it is your thought and you will go and execute it. If you talk to somebody that time, just a little conversation and that chain of thoughts will break. That's why they say just call. But even to call, I have to know that I have to call. That's when we lose it. So if we keep meeting people, sitting with family, what's happening with the younger generation? They're more with their friends throughout the day. And once they're back, they are in their rooms. Again, big homes, own room. Earlier, we didn't have own rooms. So people can make out. How will a parent make out what's going on in their child's life? If that child just walks in and just says hello, hi for 2 minutes, goes into their room. And then sometimes dinner is also going into the room. People are there also outside. And then next morning the child will walk out. You're not meeting that child, or that child is not making effort to meet you for more than a few minutes. You can't come to know what somebody is going through in those few minutes. But if you sit for an hour with somebody, you'll be able to make out. Like when we meet people, we sit with them. And by the end of that hour, we know it's not an emotional health issue. It takes time. Initially we think they've come with an issue. So we are actually talking about the issue. But by the time they talk and they talk and they talk, and by the end of it, we say, you know what, we need to see a doctor first. It takes that hour to talk. So every time everybody will not know that I need to go to a therapist, but family can play that role. So sit, keep away your phones once you're at home. Even if people are sitting like this, they're sitting like this. They're talking to other people here. They're not talking to each other. We will come to know that a family member is going through something if we sit, talk without technology. That undistracted conversations within families will give us the answers, and we will be able to help.
Yeah, and you know, when you say the thought translates to action, therefore so important to have the right thought, think right, you know, keep your thoughts in positive. And doesn't happen overnight, right? It's a process of, you know, changing your vocabulary, you know, as you said.
And
but
today
you know,
we've seen so many cases of not just self-harm, no, but harm to the other person.
Yeah.
Those harm to the other person are also not intentional harm in most cases. They are again a mental health issue not diagnosed. So it has reached to that stage, and nobody came to know in the house that somebody was going through something like this. That's the level of unaware. It couldn't have happened suddenly. It must have happened after many, many months or years to reach a stage where I can harm everybody around me, where I can go into a school and conduct a shootout like that. It must have happened after very long, and nobody came to know that the child was going through that. That's the level we are unaware of people around us because we have gone into our shell. We are living in our own rooms with our own phones. If you're sitting with everybody, we're still sitting like this. Just go back to that people-to-people connect. So like she shared about community, like when we have meditation centers, everybody comes there. We can tell people in 1 week, your face has changed. Their family doesn't come to know. So we call them and say, can't you make out? Look at how they're feeling. So, Acha. So that's, family is not able to make out what is going on in that family. So that's something we need to go back to. Once you're home in the evening, keep away your technology. Just go back to that era where there was no phone and there were only people. You will come to, first of all, your health issues will get resolved. Because that human, you are able to talk your emotions out, you're able to process it, you're able to resolve it, you'll come back. And if there is an issue, family will make out, mera bachcha theek nahi hai, or my spouse is not fine. People in organizations make out somebody is not well. People at home don't make out. Because you're spending very little time at home and very little time with people. But that we need to go back. We'll be able to catch it at a much earlier age. Like when they came to know about Deepika, they were able to work on it, na? That's all. But had they not come to know, it would have just gone on increasing. So people, family, very important role.
Oh, and you know, you mentioned that the act, right? Assuming someone does commit suicide, and we're seeing then that impact on the guilt that the family and other carry. We're not even talking of that, which will lead to other sets of problems. So I think it's you know, we have to look at it holistically, the entire chain, you know, as we, you know, take care of it. How does, when it comes to that, and how is it different? Because we're talking of more urban lifestyles, because you said you're doing a lot of work in rural India as well. How is it different in rural India, and what can people do, right? I mean, you know, I know this is a cause, whether someone has it in the family or not, and I see a lot of young people resonating with a call to action, right?
Yes.
What can people do to help others? Like, one is to be a support system, you know, just have better human connection. Is there something that you see that you need young people to volunteer for? You want, what is it what's a call to action for society at large to help this? Anything?
I think firstly, from my own personal experience, you have to be able to take care of yourself before you can take care of someone else. And often and of course there are certain maybe segments or groups of people in society that don't prioritize themselves. And I you know, often speak to groups of women, for example, and women in India, especially, let's say, you know, housewives, for example, or generally women have a tendency of playing multiple roles, and then they, you know, don't prioritize themselves. They're constantly trying to, you know, fit into these different roles and help others out there. So I think the first thing is to be able to take care of yourself. But secondly, there is, when it comes to, there are a lot of, not just our foundation, there are a lot of foundations out there doing very different and great work in this field or area. There is, you know, a little bit more help available, for example, in the form of helplines, mental health professionals, the most important step would be to get a better understanding of what are these signs and symptoms, how can you look out for it in yourself or in someone else, and therefore what can you do in those situations, because you really never know where or when or how mental illness can affect either you, can affect somebody around you. It can be at the workplace, it can be someone you don't even know, someone, you're out somewhere and something you encounter. So being aware, really allows for sort of being prepared in those situations so that you're not caught off guard. And from my personal experience, I can say that I was really caught off guard when I thought I knew enough. And that is really when, I had to play catch up and try to understand, because I didn't know, should I say certain things? Should I not say certain things? Is this going to upset the person? How can I be of support? You want to support, but you also don't want to do it in the wrong way. So I feel like if I had maybe understood the topic a little bit better prior to the experience, maybe I would have been able to help out more. But nevertheless, as a result of that experience, I feel like I have a lot more understanding now. So I do get, let's say, friends or family or people, who get in touch and say, I am experiencing something, what can I do? Or someone else is, and then sort of linking them to help and support. But I'm able to do that as a result of just maybe a little bit better awareness than in previous years. So I think that's the first step. And then you'll be a little bit more knowledgeable to be able to help other people out there, and of course yourself as well if needed or required. But I think the most important thing is getting that help and support at the right stage, recognizing that there is a change or that something is off, and finding the right qualified sort of support. Timely support is probably the most important step.
Does it get further complicated when there's fame involved and things like that? Because you often hear of, lonely at the top, or, that loneliness because you're not able to talk a lot. So, how does someone who's going through that but not able to express, like you mentioned, right? Even others don't know how to react or respond. So, is there any thinking further that you have around something like that?
Yeah, I would say maybe not fame, but I think sort of positions or situations where maybe the level of eyeballs are a little bit more. It could even be a senior leader in a company, for example. A company that's listed where there are shareholders will definitely be a little bit more cautious or careful where the confidentiality aspect is concerned, maybe stigma. But I think the important thing to highlight or to note that, and I'm not trying to, as Sister Shivani said, normalize it in a sense that, it should become normal. But I think from a stigma perspective, to normalize that this is something that affects anybody of any socio-economic background, any gender. And there are none to multiple reasons why, a lot of times people question why me, or why did I have to experience this? What was that trigger that led to it? It can be different things for different people from my understanding. But identifying it and, seeking that help and support becomes critical. The other thing which I think is important is surrounding yourself with a support system, and whatever that may be. It can be family, it can be, if you don't have family around, sometimes people have to move to other cities or locations for their work, for example. But creating some sort of support system, not only to build connection, but in a situation where you feel like you need to reach out, you're realizing that something is off and you need to reach out, having that support system to fall back on becomes, very important, and they can support you to get that help that's needed. So whether you are a CEO or a senior leader of a company, or an actor or a sports person, in today's day and age, we see a lot of athletes as well experiencing this. So irrespective of who you are, having that support system and then reaching out to someone at that critical moment becomes very important.
So you mentioned in your case, and we're going back to the family of the high achiever, right? Let's put it, whoever. So sometimes you yourself are a high achiever. There are family expectations from others to achieve, high achievers, and we know that starts right from grade 1 and 2, like how children perform, which could have an impact, in average lives in families of high achievers. I think everywhere, how is the response of the other people in the family is very critical, right? So again, one is identification in a way, but after that, what should be done? I mean, the thing is, what can people do, right? In your case, you said, you gave your example, you were also confused at some point in what you should do and what you should not do. How did you navigate that? And
I think for me personally, I had to understand, the fact that this is an illness, and so I needed to be a lot more patient. I needed to understand what are the right kinds of things to say to be able to support. In a sense, being there, but also not, being overpowering or overbearing on the individual or the person. So it's a little bit of, at least for me,
and
right?
you called yourself a caregiver,
yes,
so,
yes, of
so
course.
that's a very powerful word,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And caregivers, we see in India globally as well, caregivers are not restricted to only for mental illness, right?
Yeah,
There's so many other. So it's a similar,
But how is it different? I think it's a good point. How is a caregiver for a mental illness different from because physical caregivers, while the emotional is there and empathy, but in a mental, that is the cause, right?
Yeah.
So it's different, right?
No, so I think in physical illnesses, it's more tangible. Yeah. There is more knowledge. Maybe access to doctors is easier. You can have those open conversations with people, let's say others who have experienced something similar. There's more maybe research conducted in those fields, so you have that much more knowledge, awareness, access to the right kind of people, support groups, for example. So, but with mental illness, because of the stigma, I think the stigma is a very large barrier. You're not sure whether should I ask that family friend, should I speak to that family friend or friend or whoever, family member about it, because I don't know how they will take it. Will they judge me? So I think that stigma becomes a really important deterrent in actually understanding the topic. And secondly, of course, there is definitely a long way to go when it comes to the awareness aspect and understanding this better. It's not as measurable, like I said, as a physical illness or other illnesses. There's no sort of straight up report. It's not a blood test that you can do and say, are you, do you have...
the reaction from the other side, right?
Absolutely.
Like even siblings, will misunderstand because why are you saying? Because sometimes you yourself don't know.
Yeah.
There's one more thing between physical caregiving. It's physical. So if you say someone has this issue, okay, we know this will happen. Okay, you're going through chemo. Okay, we know these will be the side effects. So somebody can share with me. And if I have a caregiver from... But in case of mental health issues, it's not standardized. It is not standardized. So you cannot give the caregiver a standardized thing because every person behaves differently. What they will say suddenly, how they are feeling, or like how they will respond to what we say to them. So a particular way will work for one. For the other person, it will not work at all. So it is completely different from physical caregiving. Physical caregiving is very standardized. Chemo hai, nausea feel hoga, ye hoga, so you eat this, don't eat this. It's easy. It's easier for the caregiver. Even then, physical caregiving drains out a caregiver when it goes on for a very long time. Mental health caregiving is very different because it's so different every time. Even with the same person, it's different on different days. So what worked today, next day the person will just react and feel very bad about what you have said to them, even though you came with the purest of intention in the best state of your mind. So it's different. So AI will not be able to teach this because it's so much based only on our emotions and different. For AI can give you data based on something which is, database, which every person behaves differently, and most important, same one is different on another day. So caregiver has to be there. And sometimes what happens as a caregiver also, we suddenly say, but why is she saying this to me? Or why is he saying this to me? We forget, they are not saying it. The illness is talking. So I as a caregiver, if I'm not at my perfect emotional health, I feel hurt by what they have said to me. Okay, I understand they're not well, but they should have not said this to me. So we tell everyone, they are not saying. The illness is talking. Tell yourself. So come out. You are not allowed to get too hurt for too long. Because it's so personal, na? It is not like a physical disease which is, see, they are not well. They are not behaving right. No problem. Mental health issue is it affects relationships in the house. because they said this to me, they said this in this message. So we just, every time you feel this, say to yourself, they are not saying, it's the disease. Acha. Next day again, but today she said this to me. So we are seeing it more as a behavior. We have to remember it's the illness. So we will never be able to get a standardized format because everyone will be very different. Everyone. And even the caregiver emotionally is different. Again, you can't get a standardized thing. Physical, it's easy. Ye hai to ye kar do, ye hai to ye kar do. Emotionally, every caregiver is going to be different. So the way she would have responded to what her sister is going through, even if she tells me exactly, you do this, but emotionally, I'm a different person. So I might not be able to do it with the same emotion. Physically, if she tells me do this, I can go and just replicate that completely. Emotionally, I will not be able to do it because emotionally she's different, I'm different. Now suppose somebody is going through an mental health issue, but the person they're living with is also very low, emotionally resilient, then just that person's behavior is triggering the issue there. So it's way, way more complex. You can't even compare mental health issue with physical health issue. It's a completely different domain. It just comes with your experience, with your learning. Every day is a new experience. Every time it's a new learning. Achha, no, aise nahi bolna hai, aise bolna hai. Because your purest of intention, you will get a backlash from there. And then you sit with your own pain. And you forget the other person is in pain. And with mental health issue, another thing happens. People around the person also create pain emotionally, and that adds pain. Physical health issue, you remain fit and you can take care of the other person's fit. Emotionally, you also get drained when you are going through those periodic episodes and those behaviors, because emotionally we are not able to, Elaine said, no, I'm untouched by what the other person is saying. It doesn't happen, because what they do is, when they're not well, they will dig up the past. Children will say to the parent, you were a failure. And that parent has spent the last 30 years doing everything for that child. And that child will say, when I was 5, you did this. When I was 7, you did this. You were not here for me. You never spent time. The parent goes into a shock. Sometimes I feel you have to first take care of the parent when the child is saying all this, because they're not talking only of today's situations. They will come up with the whole life, everything that was suppressed, everything, which was only an emotion, but now that emotion gets escalated and they will verbalize it. They never verbalized it before. So the parent thought we have a very good equation. The couple thought we have a very good equation with each other. Suddenly you realize it was a complete failure. So you have to remember, no, it's the disease. It's not your child talking. It's the disease. Takes time.
Very hard to correlate. But given that we are going to need trained caregivers for mental health, I mean, I'm just putting a problem statement out there, right? I'm sure. What can we do? I mean, are there good global examples? Are you as a foundation doing something? Of course, I know individually you have to be far stronger emotionally to be able to address that. Is that primary role a family? Like we have physical caregivers, can we train people to become that? And then how do you suddenly drop a caregiver into the life of someone who is not even looking at friends and family? Or do we have to train friends and family in a particular way when a situation arises? Any thoughts, Anisha?
I think exactly like you said, we are already late on the reacting bandwagon when it comes to mental health, and that is why, as a foundation, we have been, at least for the last decade, saying we really need to prioritize this and focus on this at various levels, because we are already late on to sort of this whole thing. So I think there is no, let's say, one or two solutions. It's got to be holistic, and it's got to be coming from various sets of people and individuals and groups, starting with the individual themselves, greater awareness, building your own resilience, being able to support yourself and others out there. Secondly, as a society, similar sort of a concept, but being more empathetic towards, someone you meet, whether you know them or you don't. Everyone is going through their own challenge in today's day and age. So a little bit of compassion or empathy, can go a long way. Foundations like ours, lots more where those sort of organizations can come in and play a role. There's enough work that needs to be done. Let's say companies or corporate India, prioritizing this as a focus area within organizations, schools and colleges. That's where the youth of the country are, spending most of their time. better, let's say, better safeguards on digital utilization or usage of content and communication. Then we have, of course, government. The government can come in at state level as well as a national level, prioritize this. We have been seeing that at various state and at the central level as well, especially post-COVID and over the last decade or so, that there have been significant milestones or markers where improvement in this area or space has happened. So I think there has been a change, and people, organizations, companies, governments are putting in a little bit of effort, but because we're already sort of late on it, we need to do it 10x or 100x or 1000x faster, better, and really sort of those who are not prioritizing it really need to prioritize it now.
No, I think the greater sense of urgency, and actually, honestly, what has happened with Deepika and you, because you've as two sisters come together, as a foundation to inspire many others and to do more about this space. I think that's key, right? Because the fact that she could talk about it publicly, you have joined the mission. I think it makes is there a bigger message here for families that are going through this to come out and do more, maybe, I don't know, global sisterhood, or how do you, because I'm sure you've been through the journey, and your family also, right, internally, how do you talk about it? How did you all come about? Is there any message through your story that you want to send out?
I definitely want to acknowledge that, it's not just the both of us. We've got a fantastic board of trustees. We've got a fantastic team, people who have contributed to the foundation's mission over the years, currently, and I'm sure in the future as well. So there are a lot of people involved in sort of the work that we do, and even, for example, the support of our donors. We wouldn't be able to do that without their support. So I think there's a larger ecosystem of people involved in the foundation's role per se. But I think what one takeaway can be that if there is a common goal and a common purpose, and we started the conversation, of course, with purpose, if there is a common purpose that everyone wants to work towards, then I think, getting the right kind of people together who have an interest in this common purpose. And I think that's one commonality, whether it is, Deepika to board members, people on our team, advisors, donors, everybody understands the need, the requirement, has a passion for this cause and wants to be able to do something. Now, there are millions of things that you can do. I'm not just saying our foundation or our organization, but the bottom line is that bringing these people together, or coming together, putting our minds together, because there's a lot of, obviously, intellectual capital for example, from our board, etc. So just being able to think what is the problem statement? How do you want to try and make a difference? Playing to your strengths, and then being able to, more importantly, track that, measure that. Are you tweaking, changing? You'll fail, of course. You'll make mistakes, but as you go along, as long as you are seeing some sort of a change or a difference, the foundation actually started off with a core belief that no life should be lost due to mental illness. And I remember the one thing that Deepika said is, irrespective of everything else, if I can even help save one life, or if I can make a difference even to one person, it would have been worth it. And, a decade later now, of course, we've surpassed that by many hundreds and thousands of numbers. But it all started with that purpose, right? So I think it comes down to, do you want to make that difference? It doesn't have to be in a structured format like a foundation. It doesn't have to be, with a larger group, but everyone can make that difference even in their own sort of ecosystem. It's really just about identifying what it is, having that purpose, identifying what you want to do, and then actioning on it.
Corporates need to take care of the mental well-being just by allowing their people to slow down after they have reached home. Whole of corporate India needs to take this up as one mission. Corporates are giving money to work on mental health. Corporates also need to take care that we don't need to reach there. So if every organization takes this one decision, that once people leave my office, they don't have to work, we will meet tomorrow morning. We will see a change. We will see a change not just in the parent, we will see a change in the children of that parent. Just everyone together needs to do that as one decision. What happens if you tell one organization, they'll say, but the other person is going to go ahead. You know, that fear of that whole thing. But if it just becomes like one way of living, one way of working, that everyone in the entire country takes this decision that we will not work once we are home. We will not work on a Sunday, unless of course it's a crisis. That happens very rare. Things will change all over. It's something that India needs to get up and do. Figures are very high. You know, by the time we're going to build up this awareness and by the time the figures are going so high that we will still feel we are way behind. We are way behind. And figures in mental health, figures in physical health also. So corporate India. So maybe the government and with CII and everything, they need to take this decision for the well-being of the children also. Both parents working, nuclear families, and after coming home also there is only work on their mind. Obviously they will not notice behavioral changes in the child because then the child is in their room. So just that one thing. This is also a contribution.
No, I think, and very important, like I co-chair the India at 100 Foundation, which is Viksit Bharat, aligned with the Prime Minister's vision. And I think taking people along, as I said, you know, the priorities for India are so much. But today, corporate CSR, for example, ever since, you know, we had a 2% mandatory kind of a, you know, amount that profitable companies. Yeah. So, you know, companies that are able to give that, maybe we need to think at a...
This is also social responsibility.
Level, it's a social responsibility around the individuals who work for you, who are part of it. I think will require a lot more societal discussion and debate about how do we create an environment that goes beyond, you know, the workplace, and what should that look like, and how do we get it, you know, to life. I think so many aspects, but the one thing that, you know, and we started with purpose and you know, I've come here is very apparent from our conversation that everybody can do something about this, right? Whether it is a family member, whether it's a friend, whether it's a young kid, whether it's someone older, whether it's rural, whether it is, you know, urban, whether it's a film star or it's a corporate or achievers, because a sense of achievement is something everyone wants. And as you go through that journey of success or achievement, there will be, you know, many who will face different challenges, and you need to be able to do that. And my only thing would be that, you know, it will need to have a beautiful mind to be able to, you know, to understand this and to be able to contribute. So whatever one can do to keep yourself positive, as you mentioned, if you can't be there, then you can't really help others. You know, take your own initiative to be able to do that and see how much one can help. I mean, we can go on this topic, but, you know, I'm going to just end with this little short, you know, part of this podcast that we do, a mindful minute, just a few pointed questions, you know, just that we can get some of our audiences to kind of take back on some of the topics that we think are, you know, kind of important around maybe the subject, and Anisha, you in particular. So, you know, one word that really describes the state of mental health in India today, if you had to put one word to that.
Today, I would say hopeful, because there's obviously, there has been a change, and I think that there are things being done. So I would say hope or hopeful.
And one, you know, mental health myth that, you know, people should just stop believing.
That an individual who is experiencing mental illness is doing it, let's say, purposely or to draw attention to themselves. That's a common societal myth. It's a clinical condition, and, you know, there is a reason why a person is behaving a certain way.
You know, one habit that silently damages mental health.
Like we spoke about, over access to information or overuse of technology, basically, on devices.
One book, idea, or a practice that shapes your thinking, particularly, of course, besides the experience about mental health, maybe something that you recommend people should look at?
I really practice in certain situations and like to do this breathing technique called 4-7-8 breathing. Basically means you breathe in for, slow breathing in for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7, and then you breathe out to the count of 8. And then you keep repeating that. So breathe in 4, hold for 7, and breathe out for 8. It's called 4-7-8 for that reason. So it's easy to remember and recall. Various situations where I, over the years have been practicing this, even, for example, even before, sometimes, let's say you're not able to fall asleep and things like that. So it's something that works for me, but people should try it out and see if it works for them.
I think there have been, Swami Vivekananda, someone that opens up your connection, your inner eye to the same connection. I think it's the same, multiple ways to look at this, because ultimately our physiology and our spirituality is all linked in some way. One quality in Deepika that inspires you the most?
Maybe a combination of courage, which also allows her to sort of break glass ceilings or sort of step out of her comfort zone. I think that has allowed her to reach where she has today.
And maybe the last one is, what's the most powerful thing that you can say to a person who you think is struggling with mental health issues?
Things like, you are not alone, or I understand what you're going through, I empathize with you, I'm here with you, to support you. Just being sort of words of comfort and care to let that person know that they're not alone on that journey.
And one powerful thing, Sister Shivani, will end with that you would like to tell Anisha.
She has aligned her purpose with the doing. She's doing it with the purest intention because it's coming from experience. See, experience raises our level of the intention because it's coming from that very, very deep intent to give to the world what I have learned or what I have experienced, and that purest intent that I don't want another person to go through. That changes the level. Then you're not working intellectually on it, you're working from that very deep rooted intent and emotion. That will make her able to reach to many, many people very selflessly. And that's obviously also going to earn her so many blessings. So very fortunate to be taking this up as her intent. So it becomes more like seva, where you're just doing it selflessly. So seva raises your energy also. So that's what she's able to do.
Thank you so much.
And India needs more Anishas, and the world needs more people like you. Thank you, Anisha, for being here. Thank you for this wonderful conversation, and we hope this can inspire many more to take up not only this cause, but whatever cause you're passionate about, you feel fulfills your purpose. Go out there and do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You too can start or enhance your mindfulness journey using the ThinkRight app on iOS and Android store. It's got a huge number of daily affirmations, daily journeys, daily meditations that will enable us to hold your hand as you move in this transformative journey of life.